Hey there everyone, welcome back to another impressions video, and today we're going to be talking about this game right here. This is Seikaiju no Meikyu 5, also known as Etrian Odyssey 5, and this is, if you've never played an Etrian Odyssey game, you're missing out, but also this is a first-person dungeon crawling series made by Atlas. I mentioned it before. I hate the art style for the game. It's kind of like everybody is a lowly, but the it's kind of got a cute art style to it. But it's a hardcore kind of first person dungeon crawler, and I think Etrian Odyssey 5 does some things differently. If you've played previous games in the series, it does things differently than 4 and 3 also, but 4, if you've played 4 was your first entry into the series, for example, you're going to go into this thinking like it's pretty different. And that's not fundamentally different, but it's different in some ways that were kind of major in the previous game. So, for example, in the previous game there were airships and there's like an overworld map you could kind of move along to go to different dungeons. This one, it just goes back to the kind of root of the series and gives you just one big dungeon, one continuous dungeon. And if you've played Etrian Odyssey 1 and 2, you know that they're both just like one big dungeon. And this one is different. It's like that. It's more towards the roots and less towards like what they were doing later, where you could either go with like boats or airships or whatever. And this one does some other things too that are different from the previous games, in that there's character specific races that like when you first create characters in the game, you have to select character race, and then like from that race you can only select certain classes. So in the beginning of the game, only certain races can be certain classes. It doesn't really matter because you can switch the class afterwards. You can change the character's class to anything afterwards. So like, if you're starting off with a regular human, like there's some classes you can't be, but if you're willing to lose 5 levels, you can basically transfer to any class you like, and it doesn't matter. So it's not a huge handicap, but in the beginning, it's like maybe an excuse to have like a racially diverse party, not in a kind of social justice kind of way, but more in a way that like, oh, here's all this different stuff we're doing, so here's a reason to pick these different kind of creatures. I mean, they're all variations of, fantasy creatures, humans, elves, dwarves, that kind of thing. I mean, I guess they're more like hobbits, but whatever. There's 4 races, and then you have a bunch of classes. 8, 9 classes, I think it is. I'm trying to remember them all. There's a fencer, which I think in English is the Landschrecht. I think that's what it is in the other games, but it's just fencer in Japanese, so I don't know what it'll be in English. But there's Fencer Cestus, which is kind of like a boxing class, with like a punching class. Reaper, which it's sort of like, it's hard to I'll get into this later, but it's hard to say what the classes are really like, but because there's different ways to specialize them later on in the game. But the Reaper tends to is like a front row kind of a fighter type character that specializes in multi attacks and kind of like weakening attacks, like some kind of attacks that will give some kind of a status effect, mostly like weakening or strengthening kind of things. Then you have Warlock, which is basically a wizard. You're like kind of elemental wizard type of basic thing. You've got a Necromancer, which is, this kind of thing is new, I think. The Necromancer is a new class that is interesting because it's not a particularly strong character. Especially in the beginning of the game, it feels like kind of underpowered. But what you can do is, like, as you get better as a Necromancer, you can summon kind of ghosts to fight for you, and it'll make like a extra front row where there's characters in front of the front characters that will be fighting, and you can't control them. They fight by themselves. So like, and the Necromancer, the ghosts are are particularly lazy. Sometimes like they won't attack at all. Sometimes they'll just like wander around confused, and sometimes they'll attack and stun creatures. Like they'll attack, do damage, and give like a stun effect, which is handy. Um, so I mean, I'll talk about the Necromancer again later because it's a class that needs talking about. Then there's the Hound, which is a kind of like a hunter class. You can summon an animal, so again, you'll get another creature in front of you, in front of the front row, and you can specialize like between a dog and an eagle. It's kind of a cool class. It's a pretty cool class. You have the Masarao, which is like a samurai type of class, and the Shaman, which is a kind of a status effect support kind of magic character, and the Herbalist, which is like a cleric. But like I said, I wanted to talk specifically about the Necromancer because it's kind of a, like I was saying, it feels weak at first, but later on in the game it becomes like the most broken class in the game. Like you can exploit the abilities of the Necromancer to make like the game ridiculously easy. Um, like there's skills that allow you to add health to your ghosts, and by using those skills you can create a ghost that has like 9,999 HP, which makes the, like, that sounds weird, but like you can order the ghost to protect, so like the ghost will soak all damage from enemies until they die. So if you have a 9,999 ghost, I mean, the ghosts disappear when you leave the dungeon, but if you spend the time making it, basically every boss loses to you. They can't hit you, and you'll find that like there's another skill that allows you to blow up the ghosts for the amount of damage that their health is. So if you imagine like you're fighting a boss that has like 10,000 health, you can blow up the 999,000 the 9,999 health ghost, and basically it's down to one hit point. And that like actually encompasses like a large amount of the bosses in the game. Like you can hold up to three ghosts. Like if you could potentially make the ghosts beat three 9,999 ghosts, it would be a pain in the ass to do that, but you could do it, and basically you could just beat the entire game that way. It's the brokenest class. If you're ever having trouble in this game, like use a Necromancer, because they're not exactly the most fair class, I think. The other classes have some good things. Like the Hound is a good one because it's kind of like the archer or the gunman in other games, where it stays in the background and shoots, but it can kind of add status effects, and so you have an arrow, and by doing that you can shoot and have the animal do something. So the animal will usually, like, there's a kind of an attack that will cause the animal to the dog. If you're using the dog, it'll follow up with like a binding attack. So it'll like bind legs and arms or something, bind head and arms. I don't remember what it is. I think it's arms and head, maybe arms and legs. I don't remember. But there's things like that and the Hound also has some like good abilities where like every turn it like heals you. Just having the dog in the party like causes your party to be healed every round. So when you summon the animal, you can keep getting hit points back. So it like almost negates the use of like a main healer for the party, except like for a boss, obviously. But you can use the Hound to heal the whole party like constantly. It's a pretty helpful class to have in your party. If you don't want to waste a slot on a dedicated healer, you could have a Hound or two, and it would basically I guess one would do it. You can't summon more than one dog. But you can have the Hound in there, and it makes the battles, like regular battles throughout the dungeon, a lot easier because you can kind of just spam attacks through it. It makes it easier because you don't have to worry about healing, because every round you're getting back like 30 or 40 hit points from the dog. And then if you get like more damaged, you can order the dog to heal, like do an actual healing move, and it's not as strong as like a healer would be, but you know, with the bonus of the every round healing, you get you get a lot of stuff back. So it's a pretty interesting class. The classes also work in a way that is different in that once you get to a certain level, when you start playing the game, you start to feel like, wow, they've really cut down on the skills. Like you'll go in and there's like racial skills. So like depending on what, and this is another reason why I think they force you to select certain races, is that like specific races have specific skills. So like when you know, like some people have like fishing, and you can fish or you can collect food items or animals from the dungeons. Um, and that's for there's like a cooking mechanic now where you can cook um, food from things you find in the dungeon to make like healing items that will recover your HP and TP. So you can you know, you don't have to buy that stuff in the store anymore. You can just make it from things that you find in the dungeon if you have the requisite skills. But there's a lot of things like that for each race, and then there's union skills. Like if you've played, for example, if you've never played Etrian Odyssey, but you have played something like Demon's Gaze, the union skills is like the entire party does a special attack together. And you can, there's a bunch of those in the racial categories. Um, so, you know, you have those skills, but then you have like only one page of normal skills. And if you remember from 4, there was 3 pages of skills. Like you'd go and there, it would kind of like after a certain level cap, you would go to the next page, and then after that there'd be another page. And in this one, it's only one page, and you're like, what the fuck? Did they just take out a bunch of skills and add the racial skills instead? Because that's, you know, it kind of feels simple. And then you realize like later on that like, oh no, they didn't do that. It's more clever. They add class specializations. So like you get an entire separate page of skills for each character, but you have to specialize. So for example, if you're the healer, you can specialize in status effects like poisoning. You can specialize in more healing stuff, so you can get like better healing skills or like full party healing skills, things like that. Or, you know, if you're the hunter or the hound, I guess, like you can specialize in the dog or the eagle, and you'll get special skills for just one animal instead of using both. So there's a lot of interesting things going on. The Maserao has a kind of cool mechanic where one of the specializations is like a kind of, I don't remember what it's called, but it's kind of like a thing where you give up protection to have more attacks. So like you can equip 4 swords instead of any armor. I mean, you'll get destroyed if you get hit, but like you can do you basically your character attacks with 4 swords per round. So it's pretty interesting. There's a lot of different things you can do due to the specializations, and it makes the game a lot more interesting in the later game, because you'll find that you'll want to keep, you like, depending on the boss, like sometimes you'll want to respec characters, and like that's cost 2 levels. It sucks later in the game, but you know, if you want to respec a character to a different route, it's helpful sometimes, because you can get, you know, like maybe this certain boss has like multiple things happening. You want to have like a wider ranging attack that doesn't attack in a single focus. Like you can respec characters to attack full part, like larger attacks, or you want like this class is really weak to this certain type of thing, so I should move to, you know, I should get this kind of status effects on my character, so I have to respecialize. I was doing that a bunch for stuff in this game while playing through it, and I made the mistake of like arbitrarily tacking a amount of levels I should level up per floor of the stage. And I miscalculated it, because I went on the assumption that I would be going like 30 floors. That's like generally how these games are. They're about 30 floors. And so I was like, okay, 30 floors, you know, by about 100, so I should go about 3 levels a floor, and it's a give or take. But so I was like leveling it up at three levels per floor, and I got to around near the and this is like average because like sometimes I would go up more, and if I went up more, I'd still like, oh, I still got to go up 3 levels this floor. So eventually, there was a level cap at 70, and I got there at like around the 20th floor, which is a bit early to be at level 70. So like towards the end of the game, like I was at the level cap for the whole final part of the dungeon where I was just like getting all this worthless experience. Um, and you don't want to do that because I mean I'll probably make the game easier, but it means like you can respec a ton. I guess like maybe you do want to do that because like I was respecing like crazy during that part because I was just like, well, might as well test out some other stuff since I'm just getting all this useless experience for nothing. I mean, I'm just going to be able to level up right away again. So I liked the way that it lets you respec and give you these kind of like wide variety of character options for your parties. It's a pretty deep system, I think, and like it felt really not deep at the beginning, where I thought like, oh my god, how did they make it so simple? And then I was pleasantly surprised later on when it opened up, and I was suddenly like a lot better off. There is a way to get past the level 70 level cap, but it's like past the end of the game. It's in the post dungeon. So like once you get to the end boss and you're level 70, it's going to be a tough battle if you've been like over grinded and you're like expecting an easier battle. So that's why I recommend not doing that because you can it's better to go in expecting a hard battle than go in kind of blindsided. Um, but once you get to the post game stuff, it's interesting. But let's talk about the dungeons a bit because they're similar to some other games in the series. Like you start out and it's always basically all these games like the first 5 floors are a bit like the woods, but then later on it changes to different things. Whereas the next 5 floors in this are kind of a desert, and then you have like this kind of graveyard type thing. And I'd have to look at what the other stuff is past that. I don't remember, which is weird. Oh, okay. Um, there's like an ice floor, and then there's like outer space and stuff. It gets crazier towards the end. Um, but there's a lot of stuff going on in this game, and there's not a lot of story. So there are quests and things you can do. There's characters in the town. Um, you don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about things like monsters coming and attacking the town, like in a Demon Gaze or something like that. You don't have to worry about that kind of thing happening. The town doesn't really change that much. You get quests at the bar. You get missions from the council, like you normally would in any of these games. So the setup for the town is essentially the same as it's been forever. Um, there's you can rest to get all your health back at the inn and buy things at the shop. You sell things at the shop, like items from the monsters to create new items, new weapons. FOEs, the foes in the stage, are still there. Um, I will say that this game is balanced a lot better than it was in Etrian Odyssey 4. Etrian Odyssey 4 was shockingly easy. Like I went into it and I thought like this game is way easier than it should be. And this game, Etrian Odyssey 5, is much better for that. And I think like they did it in a way where there's like not an easy setting. There's like advanced and basic as your settings, and like the basic setting is essentially the easy setting, but it doesn't. But it's clever because like when you look at it, I played through on advanced because I thought like, oh, basic must be like for basic bitches. I don't know. I didn't think that. I just thought like, oh, it must be the easy setting because previously, like there was an easy setting and a regular setting. So like I went into it thinking like, um, oh well, they just changed the names, but essentially basic will probably be the easy setting and advanced will be the regular setting. And I assumed that a hard setting would open. I'm actually, I didn't. I was just going through the post game stuff, and I didn't look at the new game plus stuff. So I'm gonna do that right now. I have the game open so I can remember some things about it. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually open it right now and start a new game plus and see if there's an extra setting past the where is this? But yeah, there will be. I'm guessing that there's going to be some kind of extra hard setting. Oh, here it is. This is basic and advanced. I'm going to go into the New Game Plus and I'll see if there's some, because I didn't play any of the New Game Plus, but I know there's an option because there's a new game with a star on the main menu after I beat it. And it doesn't, let's see. New game star. Okay. Nope. Okay, maybe not. Maybe not. It doesn't appear to have an option for new game extra hard plus or something. Maybe there is, but I haven't finished the post game content, so possibly there's something else on there that I haven't done yet. But the thing with it so far is that the advanced setting was relatively harder than the regular setting, the not easy setting on EO4. So Etrian Odyssey 4, if you played that and you thought like it was really hard, you're gonna be probably more put off by Etrian Odyssey 5. It's definitely harder than 4. It's not. That's not to say it's too hard. I didn't think it was ever too hard where I was just like, Jesus, this is not cool. It was more like, a good kind of challenging, and I thought like, oh, this feels like the advanced setting on this feels like a good kind of setting for one of these Etrian Odyssey games. It feels like it should be that hard. So I feel like they actually tweaked it for the better. It feels better than Etrian Odyssey 4 did. And I don't miss the kind of overworld stuff with the ships and going to all the smaller dungeons and things like that. I don't miss that kind of stuff in this game. I feel like I play Etrian Odyssey because I want it to feel like an old style kind of wizardry game, and they're all like just one big dungeon, and I like that. Not that all wizardry games are one big dungeon, but like if you played wizardry like 1 through 3, they're all just one big dungeon essentially, and this feels like that. It feels good to me. I like this game. I liked it a lot. I thought, it's not bogged down with a real story that has any meaning. None of the characters are too intrusive. So this is why I don't want to play the Etrian Odyssey Untold games, because I don't like the first-person dungeon crawlers I play to have like a heavy story or anything, unless it's something that's done in a totally different way. Like, when you have SMT 1 and 2, like they're first-person dungeon crawlers with a heavy story, and it works because they're not, focused on the dungeon crawling so much as they're focused on other things. Whereas a game like Etrian Odyssey is focused on like strategizing with a party that is like your own creation. I think it's more based on like kind of making a party that is interesting and can do like good things against certain bosses. And I feel like that's a lot of the fun for me. I feel there's not a lot of interest if the party was like a set party. I wouldn't feel as interested by that. It wouldn't be as fun for me. And if I had to worry about the story or whatever, it wouldn't be as fun to me to just like keep respecking and going back and doing just like wandering around a dungeon. Is more fun to me than having to like progress a story as the main goal. So if that sounds fun to you, Etrian Odyssey 5 will probably be fun for you. If you're like really into the Untold games and you're just like, I haven't played one of these mainline games, I wonder how it'll be, you'd probably be disappointed because there's almost no story. I mean, there's a bit of story. It's not like there's nothing. You meet characters, they have problems, you help them fix them, but they're not the kind of, in-depth storylines, that kind of things. So you're probably okay if you don't want to worry about that stuff. So maybe that's all I wanted to say about Etrian Odyssey 5. I'm trying to think of if there's anything else that I'm forgetting. There probably is. Maybe not. A main thing, I mean, if you've never played this, it does have the map drawing on the bottom, and the drawing is good in this. Same as always, I guess. There's not really a huge difference. I want to think the dungeons are good, the design is good, and except for like some, like they're it's a little heavy on the old teleporters in the dungeon thing. Um, it's not illogical though. I mean that's okay. I mean I don't feel like it's bad. I just feel like those are some of my least favorite dungeons where there's like a ton of teleporters. That always like I don't know. I always feel not so happy about those. But and there's like at least 10 floors of that for on these. But you feel like it's not terrible. But yeah, it's a good game. So if you like Etrian Odyssey 4, if you like 3, you like 2, you like 1, you'll like 5. If you liked 4 only, you might not like 5. Um, if only because it's lacking some of the things that were in 4 that people seem to like the airships. Um, but if you liked 2, if you played even if you played Untold 1 and 2, like you might like 5 if you aren't really into the stories, because they're kind of similar in that kind of vein, if only because it's one big dungeon. So yeah, that's pretty much it for Etrian Odyssey 5. I'm recording this on Wednesday the 14th. Tomorrow is Persona 5, so that might be the next review. But I've got 2 other impressions videos besides this one to upload, so I've been busy. So next after those 3 will be Persona 5 though, because that's gonna consume my life for at least a week or 2. So yeah, I will catch you guys next time.